cannot answer your call today because congressional Democrats are holding government funding, including funding for our troops and other national security priorities, hostage to an unrelated immigration debate. Due to this obstruction, the government is shut down. In the meantime, you can leave a comment for the president at www.whitehouse.gov/contact. We look forward to taking your calls as soon as the government reopens.
And that, Neil, is what you get when you phone the White House, or at least over the past weekend anyway.
Yes, the White House. America's closed down, and the White House has closed down, and they're blaming the Democrats for it, even though the Republicans run both houses. And they've got a president who wrote the book Art of the Deal.
Yes, The Art of the Deal. Well, I don't think he did write that, but I do think he wrote that message, actually. I can just imagine him pulling up to his side whoever is in charge of the answering machine message and saying, here's what we're going to say, right? Blame the Dems, it's all their fault. It's ridiculous. It's so childish, isn't it?
It's incredibly childish, and plus, he didn't even bother deleting his tweet from 2013, where he said,
oh, yes,
a shutdown is always the president's fault.
Except when Donald J. Trump is president. Okay.
But it's good to see there's been a temporary reprieve, at least until February 8th. So let's hope they can get the deal done on DACA.
Yes, DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So that's the immigration policy, which is causing a lot of trouble for them at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's trying to protect kids in the country longer than they haven't, who were brought in by illegal immigrants, but that's pretty much the only life they've ever known.
Yeah, I imagine, you being told one morning, oh, you can't stay here anymore. I know all you know is the States, but you've got to go back to, I don't know, El Salvador or something.
Yeah.
You say, where's that? Well, you've got to go live there.
Yeah, so hopefully a deal can be done on this.
Yes, bone of contention, definitely. And other bone of contentions in the world at the moment, we are going to look at, first of all, from the New York Post, a couple accused of abusing their 13 kids believed the massive brood was God's will. Now, this has been in the news for quite a while now, for a couple of weeks, I think. At least this is the Turpin family. So the sadistic California couple who kept their 13 malnourished children captive in their squalid suburban home believe that their massive brood came from a higher calling, the victim's grandparents said. David and Louise Turpin thought that God called on them to pump out so many children. David's parents, James and Betty Turpin, told ABC News. Now, we get this a lot in these cults and things, don't we? They decide that they're going to shut themselves off from the world. They can have lots of children because, I don't know, God tells them to, and that is effectively their congregation.
Yeah, and it's funny, it took a while for this to come out, whether they were religious or not. I mean, we were talking and automatically said, yeah, they're definitely going to be religious.
It's got to be religious.
It's got to be religion.
Look at his hair. He's got the cult bowl cut and everything, so it all seemed to point to it.
Yeah, and true to form, it did come out they were. And yeah, the isolation thing is very much cultist, very much like the Brethren, Plymouth Brethren, and that makes sure people don't have contact with the outside world.
The outside world is evil, do things our way or else.
Yeah, but this is taking it to an absolute extreme level, and they were home educating their kids, and the kids were never seen. So I'm not really sure how this wasn't picked up earlier, to tell the truth.
I think there was something revealed that when you looked up the address of the house, it came up as a school.
Yes, it did, but the kids were the only ones attending. Their kids were the only ones attending. Their
kids were from age 2 to 29. Yeah, authorities said Monday that the couple habitually abused their own progeny ages 2 to 29 by withholding food and keeping them shackled inside their dark and filthy Paris, California home after a 17-year-old daughter escaped the hellhole the day before. So, and apparently she looked about 10 years old. She was very pale, scared of the outside world, but obviously what was going on inside the house was bad enough that she was willing to brave the outside world. And this is how it was all brought to light.
Yeah, thank goodness she did escape eventually. Unfortunately, there was lots of opportunities. Neighbours said they thought there was something wrong, something up, something didn't feel right, but never actually got reported to child services or anything. So if you do have any doubts about neighbours, don't be afraid to actually contact child services, because you might be saving some lives and saving some hardship.
Absolutely. And the couple practiced Pentecostal Christianity. Now, Pentecostalism, this is weird. Now, the Pentecost was an event which supposedly happened, this back in biblical times, and described in the 2nd chapter of the book of Acts. And this is when the Holy Spirit came down to Jesus' followers and gave them all sorts of spiritual gifts, like the speaking in tongues and the divine healing and all that stuff. And if you ever go to I don't know why you would want to, but if you ever went to a Pentecostal service, you'll see a bunch of crying and holding their hands in the air and people falling on the ground and speaking in tongues and all that stuff. I guess the kids were brought up in that sort of way. I mean, who knows what went on in that house?
There's going to be a lot to come out of this, absolutely for sure. And luckily they're all still here, because if they were practicing faith healing, that's incredibly dangerous.
That's the point, because maybe if they weren't taken to the doctors.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. So who knows what sort of things are going to be found, you know.
But we'll keep an eye on this story, because this is going to run and run. They've been given a $9 million bail each.
Yeah. No one's
so
gonna do that.
That shows you how serious the crimes are.
Yeah. I think this is going to be like, do you remember the incident in Germany many years ago with the girl kept in a basement?
Yes.
And I think eventually it was found out because she was able to get out to go to the doctor or something like that. And then she told, she actually explained what was happening. So what really scares me about this, Neil, is that right now out there in the world, there's another family just like that. It's not been discovered.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know why, it seems to keep happening, but I suspect in many cases religion is behind it. Not in every case, but in a lot of cases.
Yeah, certainly you have to say not in every case, but we weren't surprised to find out religion was behind this one.
No, we could smell it, unfortunately. And sadly, this subject that comes up also in our next story. This is from The Guardian. Violent deaths of LGBT people in Brazil hit an all-time high. Now, this kind of surprised me, because when you think of Brazil, you think of the the parades and not the Mardi Gras, the various celebrations that they have, all brightly colored and everything. And the impression you get over here is that, well, it's accepted, it's enjoyed, but according to the article, at least 445 LGBT Brazilians died as victims of homophobia in 2017, new research reveals, following a 30% spike in just 1 year. So despite Brazil's inclusive image, the country has a strong conservative streak.
Yep, and it's evangelicals again, unfortunately. I think the whole world, where there's this really strong conservative streak, have been emboldened by Trump's rhetoric. Hate crimes are up in many, many countries. They are in the UK, more because of Brexit than Trump, but hate crimes are up. People of the extreme right are feeling emboldened to go out and do things that they've been thinking and not acting on.
It says the victims, 387 murders and 58 suicides, include Dandara dos Santos, a transsexual woman who was beaten to death in the northeastern Brazil city of Fortaleza in March. A video of her being beaten and kicked circulated on social media, with her torturers calling her homophobic slurs. Now, what you said about the evangelical aspect of this also comes into this article. Luis Mott, an anthropologist and president of Grupo Gay de Bahia, I hope I pronounced that right, said the rising violence owed much to the prominence of ultra-conservative politicians, many of whom are linked to the country's powerful evangelical caucus in Congress. So there we go.
Yeah, so a lot of the discourse on television and the radio is comparing LGBT people to animals, obviously a natural thing. I mean, it just seems to be they're getting more and more extreme, unfortunately.
Yeah. The violence might seem at odds with Brazil's image, it goes on to say, as an inclusive nation that is home to the world's largest gay parade and where gay marriage is legal. But the country has a strong conservative streak too. One of the leading candidates in this year's presidential election is a former army captain who said that the gay children can be beaten straight.
Oh, I wonder what he would feel if we said we could beat him gay. I think he would probably deny that. Oh dear.
I think after a while he would say, I'm gay. Yeah.
Come on, get with the program, get in the 21st century.
Unfortunately, this is it. They want to stay in the 1950s or whatever idealistic time period they seem to think, had no problems whatsoever and where everything worked perfectly. In September, it says, a Brazilian judge approved gay conversion therapy a week after an exhibit of gay art was cancelled.
So this is a country with a massive population becoming more conservative, who's had a history of being very tolerant of the gay community. So there's going to be masses of clashes here. This isn't good at all for society. It's going on all around the world though. The extreme right in Russia, they go around in gangs looking for gay people to beat up. There seems to be this massive identity crisis where they can't handle the change in what's going on in the world, and they're just hitting out at the most vulnerable people they can. I don't get it. I
really thought conversion therapy was a thing in the past. There is no reliable evidence that sexuality can be controlled. The American Psychiatric Association has opposed it and said, it's harmful, does more harm than good, and you can't change somebody's sexuality. They can come out of these things pretending that they are something that they're not, and integrate into a straight family, but it actually does more psychological harm than good. So that's a sad one, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get worse before we get better, unfortunately. Why Trump is around, and
yeah, that's what we've been saying to each other, isn't it?
Yeah, we unfortunately.
Although backlash, or the death throes, as you called it.
It is. I do believe it's the death throes of the extreme right and the evangelical right having power over people. And the Women's March last week is an example of how many people are standing up to this. And I think come November elections in America, you will see a massive backlash to what's been going on.
Yeah, because a lot of people just didn't vote.
Yeah.
Same with Brexit. They just didn't get off their asses and vote. And now they're like, oh, okay, this time I realize my vote is power.
Yeah. So it just shows progression isn't a straight line, unfortunately.
No, it's just swings and roundabouts and 2 steps forward, maybe 3 steps back. And we could be in 3 steps back at the moment.
I think we are. We are.
And to end on a lighter note, but not too light, really, this is from Times of Israel. For U.S. Christian tourists, Trump's Jerusalem move has biblical implications. Some evangelicals believe shoring up Israel's claim to the city and establishing a new temple there could herald a second coming. The second coming, I should say.
Yes. So these lucky people had booked their tour before Trump announced that he was going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is the capital of...
And it was Tel Aviv, was it? Or has been? It is still.
It is still, but he wants to move it to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Because that fulfills their Bible prophecy in their eyes.
So in the Hebrew Bible, Jerusalem was established as Israel's capital by King David about 1,000 years before Christ. And I will just read a Bible verse here which I think underlines all this. This is Genesis 17:8, which is the first book of the Bible. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you. So basically they're saying, hey, this place is ours, and the Bible says it. So there you go, that's our claim.
And it's obviously made the Israeli government happy. But it's not good for the world because the peace process is basically being shot to pieces there.
They've taken sides before anything has even been properly...
It's probably the first
negotiated
government that's not been interested in having peace in the Middle East at all. They've rather sided with the evangelical right that's got this weird thing that Jesus is only going to come back once the temple is re-established in Jerusalem. I thought he said himself, you don't know when I'm going to be coming back.
No man knows the day nor the hour, only my Father in heaven knows. Something like that.
He was saying that to the disciples and telling them
so
he was going to come back
figure it out.
in their lifetime, which would have been in 30, 40 years from the time it came, if you believe that Jesus existed. 2,000 odd years later.
They're still looking for it, and you still have... This is why we have end of the world watch, because people still think they can figure out exactly when it's going to happen. It's always in their lifetime. But I think this is all Mike Pence's fault because he's an evangelical Christian. I think he's the one whispering in Trump's ear. This is how you keep your evangelical base happy. This is what you got to do next.
Yeah, because Trump doesn't care two hoots about any of this. You've only got to see the life he's led. He doesn't give a...
The only parts of the Bible he's read is the cover. The Holy Bible. That's the only bit he knows. That's the only bit he knows.
But Pence is a dangerous man standing on his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. definitely.
He
So
stands in the background looking gormless, but I think he could be pulling all the strings, at least in that department.
yeah, absolutely. So we need to, as I say, get through to November, kick the bums out of the Senate and the House.
And there's a quote here by a pastor who was going on a tour of Israel, and he said, "Certainly this holds a lot of significance for people in that way. We believe Christ is going to return." So, yeah, a lot of people going to Israel are pretty sure that something amazing is going to happen any day now.
As every Christian for 2,100 years has said.
Yes, and probably for the next 2,000 years as well.
2,000 years. It's it's a funny one, but it's got serious consequences. So it's been a bit of a serious show this week.
Yeah.
But we've got some fun stuff coming up next week.
Yeah, we did mention the end of the world, and I have a feeling there's another one of those bubbling under.
Yes, we're not far away from another one. We'll investigate that next week, and not long till we can see if the Earth's flat or not as well.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah, that's
the Rocket Man.
Yeah. That's Mad Mike Hughes. Was that
so
his
that'll
name?
be the week after next. We'll be reporting.
That was on last week's episode. Yeah. So he's obviously polishing up his rocket as we speak.
He's got
I'm not calling him a wanker or anything, but yeah, at any time now we're going to know whether he is successful or whether he is crashed and burned, perhaps literally, but I hope not.
No, I hope not literally. I don't know what to say. But
the thing is, I think we will be here next week to do another episode, and at the moment I think that's all that matters.
Indeed, we will, because there's one thing you can guarantee on this world: there's some batshit crazy religious people that are going to do some stupid stuff. You're not all batshit crazy, but there's enough of you to give us plenty of news stories.
Yes, and I think Rocket Man is actually, I think he's religious as well, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
So he's proving that the earth is flat, because I think the Bible does say that.
Yes, indeed.
The four corners of the earth and all that stuff, and it's God's footstool. Okay, I'll see you back next week, and I don't think we'll put the world completely to rights, but it'll be interesting to see what comes out and what we're going to talk about next week.